Welcome back. I said a couple of superstars along with Lee Freedman and Damien Oliver. Let's start with the biggest of them. Keith, how are you?
I was looking around. I thought I might have had to vacate my seat for a superstar. I'm well, Bruce, and so I should be. We were treated to a memorable Melbourne Cup.
Now, before we start, we're going to talk about the Melbourne Cup in the next segment. We're going to concentrate on yesterday's racing firstly. You were right last week. I said I felt it was a cup that was pretty average. That's why I liked Nothing Like a Dane as a top three-year-old. You said if something wins by 8 lengths, we'll talk about it forever. It'll be one of the all-time greats. As it's turned out, the 3 place-getters have edged a place in Australian racing forever.
Well, they have the most memorable trifecta, with Doremus joining the short list of dual Cups winners, Caulfield Melbourne Cup, with Nothing Like a Dane, the 3-year-old Derby winner, running second, and the 9-year-old Vintage Crop. What a dour stayer, an iron horse. He is running third. That's a memorable trifecta, isn't it?
Speaking of old-timers, Max, how are you? It was a lovely lead-in. Have you enjoyed Melbourne this sprint?
Oh, yes, you'd have to enjoy the racing, but I don't want to pour cold water over a hot race, but what ran fourth?
Quick Ransom.
Quick Ransom.
There's a lot of merit. There's a lot of merit in the form.
I'm just getting my rundown here. That's okay. How are you, Lee? Congratulations.
Thanks, Bruce.
4 in the first 7 in the Melbourne Cup. 3 Melbourne Cups in 7 years. It is a remarkable effort. You're becoming a legend in Australian racing. I mean that sincerely.
I like the race.
It is a great race, and so do you, Damien. You won it for the first time. What a week you've had. I mean, the trials and tribulations of a jockey in this strange old game. In fact, from Caulfield Cup time through to when you got knocked over on Dane winning the Cox Plate, through to...
It's been an eventful couple of weeks, I suppose, Bruce. I'm sort of glad it's all over now. I can relax and rest for a couple of weeks.
You've been outstanding in the after-race interviews with John Letts too, Damien. You've set a new standard for all of those. We'll talk about those a little later. The Hayes camp, they didn't have the best of springs, but boy, they can win a Nissan, can't they? 4
in a row yesterday, and with C. Skay, back-to-back wins for Peter Hayes, well, his first Group 1 winner, but for Lindsay Park, and this is the Nissan. David Taggart, a brilliant ride, steering Nissan through the field. In fact...
C. Skay actually threw the field in the Nissan. You said Nissan through the field.
Oh, did I? OK.
Sorry,
as soon as I used the word steering, I knew I was off. 2 wins for C. Skay, first Group 1 for Peter Hayes. David had done it 3 times in a row before him, and CS with Better Loosen Up, they own this race.
It's been a good race, hasn't it? I mean, Better Loosen Up and Shaftesbury Avenue won it in consecutive years. I thought Juggler was just outstanding yesterday to be so far back and come wide. Even though Seaskay wasn't far in front of him, he did work his way through the field. Lee's mare ran very, very well from the front to Lander. Let's pick up Brian Martin and have a look at the big Nissan, the Group 1 from yesterday.
From Mr. Marconi, further back Dana Rani, Kingston Bay, then Seaskay, a good 2 lengths off them, then Juggler. Further back, Allegro, fight on the inside. Back second to last, Auntie Mary, and last of all is Avedon. 700 metres to go in the Nissan. To land at 3/4 in front of Island Morn. Behind those, Snap, Final Tempo to the fence, and our Marquise on the outside, 3 out. Behind it, State Taj when they turn for home. Juggler a fair way off. Just in front of it, Dana Rani as they turn for home. Talander out in the centre, straightened up a length and a half. Island Morn, 2 to Snap. Down the outside, Sober Suit from our Marquise, followed by Final Tempo, Seaskay. Juggler's got a ton of ground to make up from Dana Rani, and then Avedon pulled out deep. Talander getting tired. They're grabbing it now. Snap in the middle. Here's Sober Suit, and now Juggler putting in a big run, and Seaskay. Seaskay drove through, grabbed Talander from Snap and Sober Suit. Seaskay in front, and Seaskay wins the Nissan. Seaskay has scored from Talander and Juggler. Close up, Sober Suit, followed by Snap. Then further back, our Marquise from
Max,
Dana.
you were just whispering to us a moment ago about Juggler's performance.
Yeah, well, it was the performance of the race. For once, you got it right, Bruce. Well, for twice, you did get Doremus right.
Seaskay hasn't won a race in between. Often horses can do this, can't they? They peak at the right time. His form was terrific. His Cox Plate run was excellent. You would have been thrilled to bits with your mare, Lee.
Yeah, I was really. You know, she's a natural leader, and when all those leading type horses drew wide, you know, there was a concern that there was going to be too much pace in the race, but I just said to young Andrew Finlay, I said, look, she's a natural leader. She loves Flemington. Go forward as if you're going to lead. I said, if they want to come across and, you know, make an issue of it, I said, take a sit, but no one did. So that played into her hands a bit. She ran a terrific race.
Greg Hall, he fell from, was dumped from tenor before the race. What's the latest? Does anybody know his condition?
Yeah, he's got a broken wrist. He'll be out for 6 weeks, so that's bad luck for the G, but he was thankful that it wasn't more serious.
Damien, a broken wrist for a jockey would seem to be one of the most serious injuries a jockey could incur.
Yeah, they are pretty serious because your wrist is a very important part of riding because you use it for the whip and holding the horses as well, and it's a very integral part of your body. But I think the jockeys are getting very frightened when Lee comes to them with the colours in the jockeys' room there.
3 down and gout from Damien. Actually, that's a pertinent question for Damien, your wrist, because you've been riding with that problem for years now, Damien, haven't you?
Yeah, my wrist hasn't been too bad over this carnival, and I have sort of developed a little bit of trouble in my shoulder, so hopefully I'll have to make sure that this is right when I do try and come back with it.
How far are you away, Damien, with your broken collarbone?
I said around about a month, and probably give it a week or two either way. I won't be rushing it, just make sure it's right. I'll try and get back for the Hong Kong invitation races on the 11th of December.
Gee, Sonny Yam's lucky that he didn't book you for Damon in the Japan Cup. You might have been able to make it, mate.
Yeah, lucky or unlucky.
Look, David Teggo, terrific performance. He won the race last year. Brad Smith did the interviews out at Flemington yesterday. Here's David Taggart.
He seems to race well for me. I've got a great affinity with the horse. I mean, it's back-to-back Nissans. It's been 12 months since he won a race, but he's always been thereabouts, 5th in the Cox Plate. He's got beaten the Toorak in record time, and I mean, I went and rode him in the Epsom. Didn't finish far behind Nick's Joy, and he deserves to win one of these this time in.
What does that do for a young jockey to win Group 1s, Damien?
Oh, it's a great boost for your career, and not only that, I suppose it gives you a boost around for the in the off-season too, because they look for the, you know, the high calibre of jockey. And I think one jockey also must be congratulated is Andrew Finlay. He's really come along this spring. He hasn't really won a big one, but he hasn't been far away, and he's ridden a lot of the minor, bigger races too.
Gay Waterhouse, so you were talking about Juggler a moment ago, and so was I. Max. Gay was pretty wrapped in the run.
Yes, I was exceptionally happy with the run. He did a great job, considering the weight in the outside alley. He's run now 3rd in the Epsom and 3rd in the Nissan. But he'll be a very good horse in the autumn. He's a very good horse now, and he'll be a better horse in the autumn.
I like him. Pindy, she is I remember one of the strapper one day said she's a real groupie. She just wins nice races, doesn't she, all the time, Keith?
Yeah, she's a pretty grey mare, a little grey mare, actually. Colin Alderson was weighing up whether he should have started her in the Melbourne Cup. He chose on just before the race not to run her, and this was the consolation for him, the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. I think it was a wise choice. She won this race. I don't think she would have been amongst splitting the Melbourne Cup trifecta horses, but this was a strong win, and she'll probably line up now in the Sandown Cup next Saturday.
Max was disparaging about Quick Ransom a moment ago, saying what ran 4th in the Melbourne Cup. He's run a pretty good race again yesterday. I read a comment, Lee, after the Melbourne Cup where you said all my horses have peaked, they'll all go for a spell. What made you want to run Quick Ransom here?
Well, he's done so exceptionally well all spring, and he came through the race beautifully, and he was he's just one of those lovely horses. He comes through the race well, he was bright and fresh, and I thought, well, why not? You know, it's a nice race, Group 2.
A bit of an experiment, because you said in the autumn he couldn't back up, and you were very light on him in the spring, so you were able to test it here yesterday, whether he could put runs together in a week.
Yeah, I think the important thing was he hadn't had many runs before that, excuse me, so he was only really having his, I think, 5th or 6th run yesterday.
Max, your thoughts about the race? Baloka was backed into favourite, the other grey, the Sydney sider.
Oh, yes, I think the form out of this race is pretty average. I think one of the great training performances of our time is Lee Freedman to get Quick Ransom to run 4th. Of course, Coachwood was up there too, was beaten in the Benalla Cup. But they were equally fine efforts as the one of winning it with Doremus. But I don't think the form of this race is that strong.
She's a good mare, though, isn't she?
Oh, she's a very handy mare, but Colin Alderson said he didn't think she was good enough to run in the Melbourne Cup, and he also said after the Moonee Valley Cup, he said, I don't think that form will work out, Moonee Valley form. That probably influenced him not to run her in the Melbourne Cup. But the art in racehorse training is getting the best out of what you've got, and there's Colin Alderson getting the best out of what he had.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and she's a good, honest mare.
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate Colin too. He's won a race in his nicest skies. I was really happy to see him win.
He's always had a good record with the stays, hasn't he, Colin Alderson?
He has, yeah.
And he's been most unlucky with that horse that carries his own name. I thought could have been anything at one stage, Alderson. He looked outstanding.
Yeah, it's a crock, unfortunately, because it would have won a lot of races, Alderson.
Larry Cassidy rode well yesterday. He rode Pindy. This is what he had to say after the race.
They went quite steady, and they sort of slowly increased the tempo, and she travelled lovely, and I just got up outside the leader, and I just held back from the lead because I just didn't want to get there too soon, and you know, she revelled in the conditions with that rain that we'd had, and you know, she really run out the journey strongly.
And what are the plans for the horse now, do you know?
I think she'll run next week in the Sandown Cup, so I'd like to see a bit more rain.
Sue Lloyd-Williams with from the marketing division with Ron Hutchinson, but just before that, a couple of horses that I backed, I think, during the week were in the background, those little Shetlands, weren't they?
I think Chiricahua was there rearing over.
More about him later, the one you fell off. The protest. We'll go to the Maribyrnong Plate. Do you think it should have been upheld or dismissed, Keith?
It's a bit difficult, but I thought I knew there would be a protest, and it wasn't surprising that it was upheld, to be frank.
Max?
Not difficult at all. It had to be upheld.
It's interesting with Greg Hall. He and Jason Weaver had a fantastic battle, I thought, on Cup Day when they were so close together. And again here, we will show you the head-on afterwards.
And what will be interesting, especially when we watch the head-on, is that Darren Gauchi's Mount Favours, which is in the All-Cerise, starts the bumping duel. Starts it. It comes in on to Greg Hall's mount.
Samadera it is.
Samadera.
Gee, it's a good horse, I reckon, Samadera.
Yeah.
In fact, it was a pretty good Maribyrnong plate full stop in terms of quality, I felt, going into the race.
I'd agree with that. Even though it was a small field, I think that's been the best two.
Costa del Lago, your two-year-old just couldn't get out, Lee. Finished third. Should have perhaps been in the finish.
Green, just very green. Needs a spell. It'd be a good horse now.
Here's the bumping about to happen. As Keith said, Flavour runs
Definitely
in.
Flavour comes in first.
And then...
This is Festival Hall stuff now for the next 150 metres. They were very close and elbows were flying.
Yeah, Greg also didn't get much room. You're right, Keith. There had to be a protest. I'm a bit like you, that I don't think there was much in whether it was upheld or not. It must have been a close call, I think.
You'll change your mind when we see the head-on.
Yes.
Here we go.
I would say I've been listening to protest results for about 30 years. I go back to Shoemaker and the leg pull, and that was the quickest I've ever seen a protest upheld.
We'll go back to that in a moment. The horse on the left, by the way, is the one that gets the race, on protest from the horse on the right. Max, so were you surprised it was so quickly upheld?
No, not really. As Pat Lawler said, he didn't have a lot to consider. You note Greg Hall's mount now in the yellow coming out, and where you look at where they both start off, certainly the first shift came from the pink colours, Flavour, but then all the way up over the latter stages, Hall's mount does come out, and certainly when you think of the margin, a short half head, I think you've got to say that the right
Greg
result
Hall was reprimanded for his involvement in that incident.
For not straightening up. It was a tricky one, wasn't it? Because both horses wanted to go in or the other way to join one another. One
Have you
wanted
got a
to run
different
out.
opinion?
No, I think it should have been upheld. I mean, to be honest, I know you're baiting me.
No, but we've said that it should have been upheld.
Well, what about, can we get it from a man who has been in that situation? Damien, what do you think it should have?
Yeah, I think it probably should have been upheld. Greg was a bit stiff, and his horse always wanted to get out, and Darren probably did the right thing by just trying to keep his horse straight and ride in a straight line, and probably made the difference in the result, I think.
Max, the Hawke stable, they Cornellaed the Silver Slipper 2 weeks ago. How would Flavour compare with Clang? Have they told you? Where are their best two-year-olds at the moment?
John Hawke said yesterday he feels that the Melbourne two-year-old form seen so far this spring is a touch stronger than Sydney. He also said he feels the Maribyrnong plate should be a set weight race, not a set weight and penalty.
Well, it was for years, wasn't it?
And he said the 58 that Flavour carried certainly made him a worthy winner.
Let's go to the Oaks. Damien, you were to ride Pontolas. You fell earlier in the day. It was very reminiscent, wasn't it, of what happened on Saturday?
Ambulance just here.
There I am. Pontolas on the fence, Brian York. It was a bit like Shane Scriven got the ride on Octagonal in the Derby, and a similar thing happened. He was hurled up. Look, Salius was just so impressive. I think it's fair to say that the best two riders in Australia are Beedman and Oliver. I don't think I'll get an argument there. I reckon they're a length and a half better than anyone else at the moment.
Shane Dye would get some votes. I mean, this is a magnificent ride. Shane was voted by Ron Hutchison, the former international jockey you mentioned earlier, as the outstanding rider in the four feature races for
the best two jocks in Australia right now are Beedman and Oliver.
Yeah, no argument from me. But for the Spring Carnival, Shane Dye came out on top.
But they only did that over 4 Group 1 races.
Well, that's enough. They're the 4
my idea of the Spring Carnival, they should take it over the whole 4 meetings, and the jockey that rides the most winners should win that trophy. That's how that trophy should be worked out. Not over 4 races that are just picked out. I know they're Group 1, but I don't think that's fair. It should be over the Carnival. And Beedman and Oliver dead heated. And Friedman won the trainers. That's the way you should do a premiership over a Carnival.
Well, whether you're right or wrong, the bottom line is that we do have some magnificent jockeys here, and I'd put Dye up into that echelon.
So would I. Just here, what would you have done differently here, Damien? It doesn't seem to be a great deal.
At this point, there's nothing Ryan really could have done. Races like the Oaks and the Derby are very tactical races, and Brian probably made a little bit of an error earlier on, that he probably should have been right behind Salius. That's what I would have done, because she was the obvious leader in the race. She was going to stack them up and she was going to sprint. If you had been right behind her, then you would have given yourself to be able to sprint with her. And Brian just was unfortunate that he just got that little bit further back and was always going to get involved in some traffic jam.
Come on, let's not detract from this filly. She's very good. She won it on her merits. There's no riding errors there that made a difference to the race result, Damien, was there?
Probably would have finished a bit closer, but I still think that Salius probably would have won. But just
Sure.
that's all that, you know, probably I would have done different.
The point is Salius was able to dictate terms, and by gee, that must be an advantage.
Oh, it's a tremendous advantage. It's lovely to see jockeys that can rate horses in front in a good race. I mean, that's been a lost art, I think.
Pat Harlan was terrific as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the mark of it. It's all right saying you get a lovely trail in a race, you get out at the right time and win, but I think to be able to make all the running and judge the pace that well, I think that's a terrific attribute.
Yeah, and good old Pat for training. The thing I love most about Salius is she can, boom, and that's the sign of a good horse. Put 3 links on them quickly.
Yeah, but if she's allowed to jog in front, allowed to canter in front, of course she'll be able to.
Pontel could jog in front, but couldn't put 3 on you in 50 yards.
Well,
Salius
no,
can. There's a
Pontel a different type of horse.
And Damien can't put 3 on you. I love acceleration in horses. I mean, it's not a knock on the other.
Do it again?
She just goes, boom. Look, we're going to take a break. We're going to talk the Melbourne Cup after this.
Damien Oliver has done just about all there is to do in racing. Now, he's done the biggest thing you can do in Australian racing. He's won the Melbourne Cup.
Look what's on top.
We're very fortunate today. We have the jockey and the trainer of the Melbourne Cup winner, Doremus Lee, doing it for the 3rd time, as we said earlier, since Terrific in 1989. And Damien's first. Is it the one you've got to get off your back, Damien? I mean, if you don't win a Melbourne Cup as a jockey, it's a pretty big burden to bear for the rest of your life. You've done it pretty early, by the way. You're only a kid.
Yeah, I suppose I've done it early, but it's taken me 7 to do it. But it's just an amazing feeling. Like, I suppose for every kid that wants to be a jockey when they're growing up, the Melbourne Cup is the race. And I suppose doing it is the monkey off your back, I suppose. And it's just an amazing feeling once you've actually crossed that line and you are the Melbourne Cup winner.
Were you only 17 or 18 when you rode in your first?
17, yeah.
And ended up on his backside.
He was in about 6th last placing on the outside. You'll see Damien, he's trying to angle the horse in and get one off. Double triggers up about 3rd or 4th. We'll talk about him a bit later. Coachwood, Damien, it's about to happen now. You're about 4th or 5th from the back, aren't you?
Yeah, Mick wouldn't get on the fence inside me, and he sort of, one got up inside him there, and Electronic was sort of coming back trying to get in outside me as well.
Your 3rd last now?
Yep, just here.
Boom.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
Down on your nose. Well, how do you, as a punter looking at that...
Just interrupt, Bruce. Past the post, a lap to go. That's vintage crop last, Doremus 3rd last.
Yeah, and they ran 1 and 3, or 3 and 1. What do you do to a horse? I mean, do you almost feel like he spent a lot of energy picking himself up? What's the thought that goes through your mind there?
Well, just the main thought is thank God he didn't go, you know. But the horse is so relaxed and really conserves his energy that just here he was just sleeping for me. And I suppose for the first half of the Cup, that's what you got to, you know, the most important thing, conserve their energy, particularly in conditions like this, because you know, it's a big effort for a horse.
Just how tough was it to ride on this track, and how heavy was the track?
It was quite heavy. I wore 2 sets of goggles, you know, for vision. I think I pulled my first set just up here down, and you know, for the other half of race, particularly from about the 1200 or the 1000 metre mark, you've got to look for the tiring horses and the horses that are also going to cart you into the race.
So important, isn't it, from about the 800 to the 400 in the Melbourne Cup? You can make so much ground and put yourself in a winning position. Are you aware of what's happening in the race? I mean, Double Trigger capitulates early, Vintage Crops at the back. Do you have a good feel for where all the horses are?
Yeah, particularly on the wet conditions, you know, because there's not many 2-mile races run in Australia, so you've got to look at the where the horse is going to start to drop off. You've got to look for the tiring ones. They're starting to tire now. And from this point until about the 600, I made ground very quickly, and I was a bit worried, and I thought to myself, God, I want to take those 2 furlongs again. I've gone too soon. But I didn't actually move on the horse. The horse just sort of travelled into the race, and the others were stopping more than anything.
That's him sweeping around the field now. He's already running about 6th.
Nothing like a Dane inside him too, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great ride by Di as well. I mean, with Paris Lane last year, you may have gone a fraction early. I mean, Greg Hall talked about Sub-Zero being in front early when he beat Viandacross that year. It is a worry, isn't it, at Flemington?
Oh, particularly when you're in front those last 200 metres, you know, it's the things that go through your mind. You're thinking, oh, no, I've gone too soon, and you just feel like throwing out a rope and pulling that winning post closer to you.
This is where we see whether horses will stay. And the 3-year-old had a beautiful run, and for a couple of hops just earlier looked like he was going to make it interesting. But there's no doubt about Doremus. He is a real 2-mile horse, a real racehorse.
And wider on the track in the yellow colours, 3 times the age of the runner-up is Vintage Crop at 9, storming home to take the 3rd placing off Quick, Ransom and Lee.
I backed Yes Indeed. It was the only bet I had for the day, but I think that's one of the most satisfying Melbourne Cups I've ever witnessed. There was a great story about all of them. I mean, Doremus, the 9th horse to do the double, Damien's first, Lee's Legend growing. Nothing Like a Dane. He is a very exciting horse.
Well, he might be a freak next year. Lee, would that take its toll on Nothing Like a Dane running in the...
It's hard to say, Keith. It's different for every horse. I mean, he's such a lovely, relaxed... I've seen a lot of him at Flemington. He's a lovely, relaxed, big horse, and he seemed to take it all in his stride.
I read an article in the London Times where Mark Johnston was approached to take over the training of Nothing Like a Dane next year and prepare for the Arc. Is that true, Max?
Yeah, I heard the same story, but I tell you what, it'll take a very good group of people, a regiment, I would say, to prize Nothing Like a Dane off T.J. Schmidt.
I would have thought that. So is that a fair income story?
That. It was a story, but Tommy said to me, he said, son, if you can get on him in the AJC Derby, you do so. He said, because he'll be with us in the autumn.
And speaking of Mark Johnson, surprised before the Melbourne Cup and shocked after it with an irregularity showing in a sampling taken from Double Trigger. Still no result on that.
They did the right thing letting the horse run, didn't they?
Well, he gave the stewards an assurance that it had nothing improper, and he was devastated, and I've genuinely felt so sorry for him that his horse went so poorly in the race.
Just a quickie, Nothing Like a Dane octagonal. Who's the better 3-year-old right now? Did that change anyone's opinion on the week?
Up to 10 furlongs octagonal, beyond that, Nothing Like a Dane.
I agree.
I don't think you can improve on that.
No, that's fair enough. Look, Damien, what a day it was for you, and just put together a couple of the highlights and one or two of the lowlights maybe on the day. There weren't too many of those. Here we go.
Damien, what about that, the Melbourne Cup second last year, Paris Lane? You made amends today.
Oh, mate, that last 200 is the longest 200 of your life, I tell you.
I think you had all of Victoria or all of Australia on you because of the crowd. We were over here, we were 2 furlongs away and we could hear it, and I found myself even cheering you, wanting you to keep going, mate.
Oh, mate, it's just sensational. I'd like to thank my mum and my brother in Perth. They've just been the greatest supporters of mine ever since I moved over from Perth, and gee, I just love them both, mate.
Damien, 23 years of age, you've ran second in a Melbourne Cup, you've won a Melbourne Cup, you've won, what now, 4 Caulfield Cups. Gee, where do you go from here?
Mate, this is unbelievable. I just won the Melbourne Cup.
Both arms raised in triumph. Let's not forget the run of the 3-year-old Nothing Like a Dane, who came so close to creating history, and the gallant Vintage Crop, the 9-year-old. Damien Oliver has done just about all there is to do in racing. Now, he's done the biggest thing you can do in Australian racing. He's won the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, it was great words by Peter Donegan, and I mean, Damien, I don't think we've had one since Higgs like you. I mean that sincerely. I mean, you're a superstar, and the racing needs it. But can we go back to earlier in the day, in the 2-year-old? We just might take you through this one, that Lee's trained Bira. Watch what happens with this horse at the start. It was an amazing thing.
Right on there racing. An awkward start away there. Bira's missed a kick by 5 lengths. Favourites missed the jump by 5 lengths.
A little bit worried when he stood there at the start.
A little shit, mate. He just wouldn't jump at all. He's done it every start this time in, but...
Told you changed the face of those after-race interviews.
That's changed the quiet boy image, hasn't it?
And then on the Thursday, a horse over dinner one night, when we'd had a couple of... whatever we'd had. You said this Chiricahua could be a good one, but he wasn't so good for Damien on Thursday, was he, at the start?
Oh, look, I don't know. But that's only happened... What that horse did in particular, I've only seen one of our horses do before. He actually came out and virtually crossed his legs out of the gates. He's just a big, clumsy horse. He's still a colt. I'm recommending to the owners that the horse is gelded. I still think...
Can I do it?
As long as I can cut your hair.
And Damien, for you, I mean, just the pain and all the things that were going through the old noggin at this stage?
As soon as I did it, I knew I'd done my collarbone, because it just feels like it's poking out the corner of your shoulder, and I was sort of winded at the time too, and I was just, you know, it was unbelievable. As you said, the chain of events this week have just been unbelievable.
It's a sight we've seen 3 times, Gouchy, Oliver and Hall yesterday, lying on the ground, not moving, extremely worrying. They're all quite lucky, really.
Well, I think it just brings home how dangerous the sport is. We take it for granted. We all criticise, even you, Max, once or twice in your life has criticised jockeys. It's not an easy game.
Never their courage.
No, that's true, that's true. I was being a little bit facetious. Lee, if we measure the majors in racing, and in golf and in tennis there are 4 majors, the Grand Slams in tennis and the 4 majors in golf. I think it's fair in Australian racing, Melbourne Cup, Golden Slipper, Cox Plate, Caulfield Cup, we wouldn't get an argument, would we?
True.
Lee, you've won 10 of them already. Bart's won 20, Tommy 19, CS, what a career he had, won 7. Yeah, making some great strides here. I mean, it's a remarkable record. It's happening quickly for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is happening very quickly. You know, it's just brilliant to have horses that can do that sort of thing. But I think one thing you've got to do would be single-minded about the races you set them for and don't deviate from that path. And if the horse is good enough, it'll do the job. And that's something I've learned over the years, is to not deviate from what I wanted to do.
3 horses have won the Melbourne Cup in consecutive years, only 4 in the history. Is that the challenge for Doremus, or is it to win the Cox Plate next year?
I think that depends what happens with him in the autumn. If he can make a weight for age horse in the autumn, I think there's every chance that we'd be looking at the Cox Plate, maybe the Japan Cup. But because it is very difficult. It's very difficult for a horse that'll probably go up, Jim, 4 or 5 kilos next year.
He would have to, wouldn't he? So you'll work that out. Damien, talking about your haircut, apparently the Freedmans were going to get you. I believe you are having your head shaved on the 9 network on Tuesday morning on the Today Show for a very good cause, to raise some money for a couple of jockeys that have had a hard time in Queensland. But we thought we might get in early. We've got the clippers here at the moment, mate, and we've got our men. I mean, I'll do a Tommy Smith bugger, Channel 9. Lee, we'll give you the clips. But actually, Julian's about to start. But before we do it, this is how you're going to look after Tuesday morning, Damien. Take a look at this.
Oh, no. We're getting plenty of money.
Who's that character in The Simpsons?
I don't know, is that a face, is that a face or a sundial?
Can we have one more look? Damien wants to have one more look.
Looks like Mil Hannah.
Actually, I thought it looked a bit like Peter Hayes.
I thought it was a sundial.
Damien, you're a good-looking fella today, son. Make the most of the next couple of days. You're going to be a shocker come Wednesday. We're going to take a break, and we're going to wrap up the Spring Carnival after this. Damien Oliver and Lee Freedman with Max Presnell and Keith Hillier as we look at the spring racing. Let's go back at all the highlights and some of the lowlights from what has been a magnificent spring in Melbourne.
Set for the Guineas. Lighters on, racing. Our Maze K bounced brilliantly out of gate number 2.
Our Maze K started the spring off in style. He was compared with Manicato and Vane after this win in the Caulfield Guineas.
It's Our Maze K at the 150-metre mark. His performance is going to do the talking. This mighty little Kiwi is out 4 in front and holding Ravada and Octagonal. Our Maze K, a little champ.
Pace was on very early in the race, wasn't it? You seem to said it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about him. He just gets out of the gate so quickly and he just gets them off the bit.
Cox Plate, you can't ride him?
I can't ride him, no. I'm very disappointed about that, but unless you know a good surgeon that can chop off a leg, you know.
The body remained intact. For York, the fight was on. The Northern Invasion began. 2 of the best arrived. Former winner, Vintage Crop, and Europe's best stayer, Double Trigger. The brightest star of the spring hit town, all hats and smiles. With her, a 3-year-old, Nothing Like a Dane. We met him in the Norman Robinson.
Stride for stride, Catlin opening, Nothing Like a Dane, Nothing Like a Dane, too good.
The Caulfield Cup was a classic.
Count Shivers on the outside has got to the front with 100 to go. Doremus late on the inside. With it is Boart. Doremus after Count Shivers and Boart. Doremus getting over the top of them. Doremus wins the Caulfield Cup a half length.
For the Freedman Oliver team, 3 wins in 4 years. The Cox Plate is famed for its theatre and its drama. It's grandstand finishes.
One of the three-year-olds, Octagonal, Mahogany on the fence as they turn for home, straightening up Octagonal. Jearns the one to have the last shot at him. Octagonal is just the leader. Mahogany coming again on the inside. Octagonal and Mahogany. Octagonal, Mahogany are coming to the line, locked together. It's a fantastic finish, Octagonal.
I really hit the front too soon on the turn. I wanted to be getting to them at the 100, not heading the front, turning for home. But with 48 and a half on my back, he was just too strong.
The Mahogany experiment almost worked. Remember Greg Hall.
I don't usually give myself